Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Paul Tyndall. I'm the president of Phoenix Coaching Works, which is a Sandler training franchisee. And today we are conducting the Sales Leaders Podcast. And this is the playbook version. And this is the podcast that it's inside the minds of Ontario's most driven owner-led businesses. We go from industrial suppliers to software companies to agencies to manufacturers to uncover how they're building, leading, and selling in a market that just, never stops changing. And so as I mentioned, I'm the president of Phoenix Coaching Works. We are business transformation advisors to sales-driven leaders. And this podcast is designed to shine a spotlight on successful entrepreneurs who are still in the trenches, still leading teams, still chasing growth, and basically juggling the demands of sales, leadership, and operations. Today, we're joined by Alysha Dominico, president of Tangible Words. Alysha, why don't you introduce yourself? Probably do a heck of a lot better than me.
I'm Alysha Dominico from Tangible Words, the CEO and co-founder. We started the company 15 years ago. We've grown it to a 15-person team. Over the years, we have changed so much in the products that we offered. When you were doing your intro, Paul, I was thinking about, the nature of change and entrepreneurship. And change has been so much a part of what we need to do in order to better serve our customers and know what they really need. We've gone from being a copywriting house to a marketing agency to a sales organization that helps them with revenue growth, to a RevOps organization, to a revenue optimization organization. That's a lot of change.
And you started, you graduated from Queen's?
I did. I went to Queen's. If you are in Canada, you know where that is. If you're not in Canada, you probably have no idea.
Well, it's in Kingston, Ontario, and it would be the equivalent of an Ivy League school if you compare it to university colleges of the Northeast. And so you graduated from Queen's, and then what?
I started teaching, traveled the world to Australia, taught there. I taught in Kingston, and then I taught in Australia. And I loved working with teenagers. I thought that was a really fulfilling job, working with them, coaching them. So much of it is coaching, right? Like that's where we started. And I loved becoming a very organized brain as a teacher. I found teaching incredibly overwhelming, having to work with 100 different students, remember their name, remember where they're at, plan the lessons for 5 different classes. That was so hard for me. And I had to learn to become a very organized and process-based person. And those are the skills that I've actually brought with me into entrepreneurship with the work that we do for our clients, is that we are very process-based and we bring structure and now team culture to an organization as well. So it's all actually started with teaching.
So, and I can relate to that. One of my first jobs out of university was also teaching. Flying. I was a flight instructor.
Oh, really?
Yes, for about 2,000 hours worth. And you have to be process driven. There's all the things that you talk about. And so maybe talk a little bit about how did you get into business? I mean, to come from teaching into entrepreneurship and business, how did that evolution occur?
It's a big leap. I would never have done it if I didn't have my wife, Vicky, who is a logistics brain. I call her the logistics queen, whether that's managing our kids and where everybody needs to be in 5 different directions at once and how she still finds a way to make it happen, or if it's in our business. But she started a company first. When we went to Australia together, I was a teacher. She'd left teaching and she started working for another company that was doing teacher recruitment, and then eventually started her own business doing teacher recruitment. And because she had that experience and knowledge, and she's just so smart, we were able to then create another company that was something that would allow us to move back home to Canada, which was our goal, which is why we started as a copywriting house. And along the way of teaching, I retrained as a copywriter and started the copywriting business as my exit strategy from teaching.
And where did you learn copywriting?
There is a wonderful woman called Bernadette Chouette in Australia who has the copywriting school, and she developed a course that, it was billed as you can write fiction, but also get paid to be a writer. And that marketing just absolutely spoke to me because I've always wanted to write fiction, but I wasn't really ready for it. And so I was like, that's what I'm going to want to do, though, when I grow up. So that's what I said at 28.
And so now you're involved with Tangible Words. What exactly do you do there?
Well, we started Tangible Words as that business that would take over and to help us design our life and then design the business around it. We knew we wanted to move home to Canada. We knew that we wanted to be able to still have a lot of teacher like perks, which is be able to be off in the summertime and be with our kids, or take the time off to be where we needed to be with any future kids that we were going to have at that point. And then we did have kids. And so that was all about, we were big in Australia. It was a lot of entrepreneurialism talk, and we did a lot of like kind of dreaming and road mapping what we wanted to achieve. And Australia was just like such a good place at that time to learn to become an entrepreneur. There was free training. I did free sales training at the Pollard Institute. I did a management training as well that Australia paid for me to take. There was some really, really great opportunities. So that was a great ecosystem for becoming an entrepreneur. And so we started Tangible Words again as a copywriting house, as a way of saying, okay, like you need a website, but you don't have the content. Well, we make the output tangible, and we do the words. And then, as I said, we had to grow beyond that. Again, this course of change that needed was our clients were then giving us content, or we were writing the content, but it was kind of like this garbage in, garbage out of old website to the new website. And we were like, that's got to change. You're not going to be happy with this. So we started getting into, again, using that teacher hat of process driven and structure and organization and kind of innate project management skills that you get from being a teacher. We took all of that and said, okay, we're going to design the architecture of the content of your site. And then we ended up in the development of the site. And then we started becoming more of a full suite marketing agency. And from there, we were a little bit like, that's still not enough. Nobody trusts marketing. So we got involved with HubSpot so that we could have the underlying revenue tie back of the ROI on your marketing. And it still wasn't enough, because marketing can bring in all kinds of leads, but marketing's best lead is usually the sales team's worst lead. And what we wanted to do was fix that again. So we leveled up and said, okay, we're going to become a growth organization where we really help them with revenue operations across customer retention, marketing, and sales, to be able to say all those things have to function. And just recently, we've really realized in some of the sales operations management that we've been doing and a lot of the projects that we've taken on with our clients, what they need from us now is revenue optimization. So we have changed over the last few months to do that as well, and where we look at all of those things to be like, how do we optimize for revenue? So that CEO who's feeling very pressured by their board, their investors, to really deliver results. It's not always about delivering results. It's actually about managing the drivers of revenue performance. And often most companies that we work with, they don't have a handle on all of those things yet. And so we help them get a handle on it and monitor it, and then correct course sooner, so that stuff's not just piling up in the background, stressing them out, and they feel out of control. They don't know where the revenue is. They don't trust the forecast. The sales team meetings are not effective or productive. So we install that discipline that really allows an organization to become much more successful.
And what are some of the major challenges that you're seeing that have the greatest impact on the businesses that you're working with now? I mean, there's a lot of them that I'm sure that you could think about. What are some of the 2 or 3 or top challenges that you see that you can help with?
Well, I think that there's a deep distrust on the data that they have, and I don't think it's distrust. I think it's almost like there's no data governance. One of my good friends is Jill Sadler, who is an EOS implementer. If you're not familiar with EOS, you should definitely read Gino Wickman's book, Traction. Indecision is plaguing companies. They're trying to do marketing, but they want it to be perfect. And by the time they get it perfect, their brand or product has changed, which is the nature of business, I think. And so they never get the marketing out the door, which really makes them be like, marketing, you didn't do it again. And it's like, well, you just didn't make a decision on the content that we needed to get out there, right? And I think that is a massive problem, is just this whole, we need it to be perfect. So I actually am trying to make sure that those companies who have indecision, I'm like, you need to go and do EOS, and I don't want to talk to you until you've done it, because you need to have a process for making decisions. And the other thing that I see all the time is, now you've done EOS and you have a way of making decisions, is you don't know part of EOS. One of the steps of EOS is the data. And it was EOS that gave me the language to realize a common problem I was seeing across all these businesses was that we don't know what the data points are that matter. That's actually a challenge that every single business really, really struggles to define and say, this data point matters to me. This one doesn't. And so what we do now is we define the data points. So we'll look at someone's, we'll say, what's your sales process? Now let's translate that into even better. Let's improve it and optimize it to say, this is okay. Let's, in your sales process right now, leads drop out here at this moment. That's predictable. So let's plan for it and have a process in place to actually reroute those leads back to the ideal path. And this whole business of making a process design sales system, we design with them. So what they're doing right now, our knowledge of best practices of what should happen, and then translating that into HubSpot's language so that we can build it for them in HubSpot. And we call that a sales process map. We do that in the first 4 weeks of any new client that we take on. We refuse to do it unless they will do that with us first, because that gives us the data points. And, people will buy a software like HubSpot because it's CRM, it's sales automations, it's marketing automations, it's reporting. And what they're looking for is they want to know reporting, they want to know segmentation, and they want to get automations. What they don't realize is all of those things only happen with data points. So now data, you're like, actually, that's really mission critical. We can't wait to find out what the data points are that matter to us. We really need to understand that. So we're like, you buy HubSpot and we implement it with you and onboard you to it, but in this very structured way of like, okay, let's get you up and selling with HubSpot in a way that makes sense to you and your business, but that also will make sense to getting the most out of HubSpot, but that also reflects our best practices of how to be a more effective, optimized revenue firm. So we do that for them, and we design and consult first for the first 2 weeks, and then the second 4 weeks we're building it in HubSpot and then onboarding them to that.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody starts there with us.
Okay. And how do you know, like you're obviously building processes and people are following this, et cetera, or they're learning to, how do you know if they're actually implementing in the field what they've been taught to do when they work with you?
This is that next phase of evolution.
What data do you have for that?
Exactly. So this is that next phase of evolution, because we were finding that we were doing that. We were getting it all built out. It was perfect. It was ready. It was done. And we're like, great. Like, we never want to have people on retainers for the sake of retainer. We always need to feel productive and that we are contributing value. So we're not that kind of agency that's like, sure, just sit on a year-long retainer with us. That'll be great. That's not how we work at all. We are driven by objectives and key results that we are getting for our clients, because we 100% deliver on those every time.
Right.
So for us, that's really, really important. So we'll say, great, you're free to go, fly, little bird, go and do these things, live this dream. And what we are finding is they can't. They need that level of optimization above, where we are designing the sales meetings and even setting the agenda, creating the boards that the salespeople can speak into, and then coaching everybody through how this conversation should go and what markers we should be looking for, because nobody wants to get up in front of their team and say, yeah, I didn't qualify that deal well enough. Oh, yeah, you know what? I actually don't know if this is a deal this month or next month. Nobody wants to do that. So salespeople will get into even really good, effective salespeople will get into a sales meeting like that, and they will weave a narrative that doesn't necessarily take us on target to hitting quota week over week. And it can create a lot of bad habits and even degrade culture, which I'm really passionate about, is like company culture. So our team has an outstanding company culture, and we come in to set that culture and to set that tone and to allow everybody to become accountable sales team workers so that they can actually become successful. But we have found that it isn't enough just to build it. We've now realized we are becoming the optimization team to making sure that it is managed and maintained going forwards.
So then how does sales leadership, sales management make sure? So what you're talking about is a set of, let's say, seller actions and buyer reciprocation, seller actions, and then the answers to, for example, you're talking about qualification, the questions that salespeople would ask, the answers that buyers give. How do you objectively know if those questions are being asked and if the information that the salespeople are allegedly getting from their clients and prospects is truthful? In other words, is it possible that the salesperson can kind of make up what is actually being spoken to them by their prospect?
Well, that's one of the wonderful things.
In other words, happy ears. Do you have a sort of a solution for that?
Yeah, that's one of the interesting things about HubSpot, that that software technology layered in behind what we're doing really omits the ability to not have, that's the data points piece that I've been talking about. The data points tell us a story. And one of the things that we're doing with the company is always identify what are the data points that matter. you can see things in HubSpot like they push the close date. Well, why are your deals trending on pushing the close date? If we as an organization stop pushing our close date, that could result in this much more revenue a month or a quarter or a year for us, which is significant. But it's very hard to track that push and the cost to the organization because it's inventory left on the shelf, right? That's another book, great book. I think it's Michael Gerber, E-Myth. It's like, I think maybe I'm quoting the wrong book actually, but the book where they talk about the book where they talk about inventory left on the shelf, I think is a really big piece to be like, well, the time passed and you didn't close that deal, so you lost that time. You're not going to make that revenue back because of capacity or whatever down the trail has to happen in order to get this product out the door and the cash flow in. So we really have to monitor and be ready to react and respond to, ooh, this is a sliding trend. Let's not let this go on for 12 months of the year or even the rest of this quarter. Let's start either it's coaching this person up or whatever the reactive response should be. Let's make a plan for how to stop this bleed of like deal push rate. It's just one data point that you can get if you set it up correctly in HubSpot and that you can then be tracking. That might be a data point that really matters to an organization.
So then in terms of revenue projection and deal confidence, that way the deals that your people are working on, there's a high level of confidence that they're going to close when they say they're going to close, and therefore revenue can be projected in the month or the quarter that it's supposedly stated.
Yeah. And one of the reasons, again, that I believe that HubSpot gives us those tools is I love the deal stages in HubSpot, but they're not often set up correctly. Your deal stages in HubSpot, and this is one of the things that we consult on and design primarily, is a qualification process of that deal. So it should progress in terms of confidence towards close by date because of the actions that I've taken. And each of those deal stages are probably a set of actions are tied to, I am more confident. Like a whole deal stage could be, is the whole key decision-making team identified? That could be a whole deal stage of qualification through that deal pipeline to be able to say, I did that or I didn't do that. Oh, I skipped that step. Why are you skipping deal stages, Johnny? Those are the kinds of conversations that you can start to have because those are critical steps that you don't want them to miss, that you know really influence the confidence of that deal closing on time.
Okay, that's one. Those are major areas that you're working on. Anything else that sort of comes to mind that have to some of the major challenges that you're seeing that you're working on?
Well, because I work on marketing and sales now, which we didn't do when we first started this company, because we work on that now, we understand the challenges around lead qualification as well. And so trying to have a process for lead qualification that is more automated than a salesperson having to manually fill in fields, which they hate, is another benefit of using Sales Professional with HubSpot, because we can say, well, that a lot of that is automated for you. So if you send an email and you log it in HubSpot, again, it's a data point you can't lie on. It's just done. It's a habit we need you to follow. We need you to always log that email. But we're going to be able to see it. And great news, you're not going to have to remember for your future self that you sent that email because HubSpot's going to say, you're attempting that lead now. It's already part of the deal qualification process. And so that's a part of the story. But on the marketing side of it too, it's really interesting to try to have a whole company conversation around things like attribution. I think people argue too much about attribution. I don't think it matters. I think that's a problem because I think that's a problem that comes about because marketing is constantly having to justify their budget. And I think that's actually really unfair because marketing's function is not to close deals, but everyone still thinks that they're supposed to be there to close deals, and they're not. They're there to generate leads. But in the majority of companies that I work with, they don't have a lead generation problem. They've got 40,000 contacts in their CRM without an open deal. You don't have a lead problem. You've got a lead qualification and a deal qualification problem. You got a process problem. And so those are kind of my favorite conversations to have because it's such a big aha moment to be like, we got to spend more money on leads. Well, paid media is a great way to lose a lot of money fast, drive CEOs nuts, right? It's so inefficient. I hate it too. And we will only do it when we're like, have we fixed all the other problems that were actually the bigger source of pain in this conversation before we'll say, yep, now we have to do lead generation. And here's what we're going to hope to get out of it. And here's why it's going to, be successful or unsuccessful. Because again, lead generation for a company that has a 6-month long sales cycle, you can't be done testing whether it worked or not in 3 months. And so many other companies have like 3-year long RFP based sales cycles, right? So you're like, well, what are we doing here, people? We've got a long sales cycle. First job, let's shore that up. Let's make sure it's effective. Let's try to shorten it. Second job, How many leads do we already have that we could reach out to? Are we touching them all? Are we doing that effectively? Those are all process problems. They're not actually, and for some reason, marketing always gets blamed. And I think that's just a lack of understanding or education about marketing's role, maybe. I don't know. I'm gonna call it that. I'm gonna say, you guys maybe don't know what you're talking about. You keep blaming marketing, you keep making them feel vulnerable, you keep making them do spins on perfect messaging all the time and so much anxiety around just get it out the door at 85% right of the way and let them just keep doing that because all they need to do is be searchable, be findable. And that's their job. That's marketing's job. So stop asking them to close deals because it really bugs me.
So that's kind of my next question is, thinking about your own leadership, what's been the hardest adjustment you've had to make in your company's growth?
I've had to do a lot of personal work to get me here. And I think that is something that every leader needs to do. If you're running a large team, you're working in a lot of conversations, you are coaching people all day long, whether it's your own team or your prospects or your clients, which I really feel like I am. I'm coaching all of those people to a level of understanding and education about what do we need to do and making decisions together. And I think you can't get there with a lot of the probably I don't know, emotional immaturity or whatever you want to call it, like egos, whatever. I've had to do a lot of personal work and I own that. And I actually feel really good about the fact of the company that I've created now. When we join another company's team, we lift the culture of that team because our team is just so happy to be here. We have an incredible work culture and work ethic. It's very hard to hire an individual who can come right into the job, know what they're doing, have the skills to do it, and be an incredibly professional about doing it in terms of how they communicate, in terms of how they set meetings, in terms of how they follow up on items. We have that. And so we bring that to every company. And I'm really proud of that. But it has come from me doing an incredible amount of personal work to learn how to build a company culture that excels and also to get rid of a lot of things that were holding me back where I was in my own way. Books like Traction, books like E-Myth, those are all I'm a major student of business and I don't know it all yet. I've been joking about how I've been working even just this week with my therapist, ChatGPT. I feel like working through some of these challenges that you face, you're always on to the next set of problems. And there may be a better set of problems, or they're just a bigger, more complicated set of problems, but you don't get to this level of what we've achieved, both with our company and more importantly with our personal life, to have the kind of company that we wanted because we designed our life first without doing a lot of personal inner work.
And in summary, could you just maybe give one, you could probably give a lot of advice, but could you give one piece of advice to a small, medium-sized, owner-managed business leader who's sort of just hit a growth ceiling? If there's anything that you would tell them, what would it be?
There are hundreds of books to help you grow. We actually did a whole podcast series on the Company Growth Podcast for Tangible Words about books to help you grow that are the 7 most pivotal books that help us level up. And as long as you're a student of learning what you need, you have to first identify, what do I need to learn right now? You can't learn all the things. You can't just go and read all the business books and get something out of it. But every time I've stopped and asked the question, what am I really trying to learn? An incredible business book has presented itself to me to teach me that skill. And so whether it was, I've got a whole bunch of them behind me, but the one that I'm thinking of right now is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Right? Like when you're at that point of we're getting into these bigger contracts, but there's some nuances here of negotiation and I need to learn that skill. That book has appeared for me. Let me see, what else do I have on there? Crossing the Chasm, Platform Revolution. These books appeared to me at a time when I really needed the language to understand the level of growth that I was at. So every time you're at a ceiling, whether you're going to go podcast and audiobook format, or you're going to read the book and highlight it and underline it like I do, pick your path. But there will be a book to help you. There is so much knowledge out there. There'll be a book or a mentor or whatever format it'll be in, but you can learn these things. It's easier now to come across it, obviously, with AI than it ever has been before. But I've always just kind of marveled at whenever I've needed to learn a lesson, a book has appeared as my teacher.
There is evidence of manifestation in a practical example. Alysha, a great interview. Thank you very much. And I'm sure people who are going to enjoy this, and if they want to reach out and get a hold of you personally or get a hold of your company, how can they do that?
They can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Alysha Dominico on LinkedIn. I also have an email address, obviously, but you can find that through our company website, tangiblewords.com.
Great job. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.